Jack Turner wasn't a rich man, not by any stretch. He was the kind of guy you'd see at the corner diner every morning in a faded baseball cap, sipping black coffee and chatting with the waitress about the weather. For 30 years, Jack worked as a mechanic in his small Ohio town. Grease stained his hands so deep it never washed out, but he was proud of his work. People trusted him. If your car broke down on the highway, Jack would show up, fix it, and charge you half of what anyone else would. But the one thing Jack was most proud of, more than his reputation, more than his shop, was his son, Michael. Michael was his whole world. Jack's wife had passed when Michael was just 6, and from that day forward, Jack played both mother and father. He packed lunches, helped with homework, and coached Little League even though he barely understood the rules. Every night before bed, he'd say the same words to his boy. "Someday, Mikey, you're going to be somebody big. And when that day comes, I'll be the loudest one cheering." And Jack meant it. Every word. The rise of Michael Turner. Michael was different from the other kids in Maplewood. He was sharp, ambitious, restless. While Jack was content fixing cars in the same small town, Michael dreamed of skyscrapers and fast cars, of making it big in places like New York or Los Angeles. Jack encouraged it. He sold his old Chevy pickup and worked weekends just to help pay for Michael's tuition. When Michael got into business school in Chicago, Jack nearly cried from pride. "Go chase that dream, son," he said, hugging him tight. "I'll hold down the fort here." At first, Michael called home often. He'd tell his dad about the city lights, about the professors who wore suits, about the fancy restaurants he'd tried. Jack would sit by the phone, smiling ear to ear, imagining his son living the life he never had. But slowly, the calls grew shorter and less frequent. Jack told himself it was just the pace of city life. "Boy's busy," he'd say with a chuckle at the diner. "That's how you know he's doing well." But deep down, the silence stung. The first cut. The first time Jack really felt the distance was Thanksgiving. He roasted a turkey, mashed potatoes, even baked a pie from scratch. A disaster, but made with love. He set the table for two, the old radio playing in the background. Michael never showed. Instead, Jack got a text. "Sorry, Dad, business dinner. I'll make it up to you." Jack sat alone at the table, carving turkey for one, telling himself, next year will be different. It wasn't. The betrayal years passed. Michael became a rising star in the real estate world, known for flipping properties and sealing deals worth millions. He wore tailored suits and drove cars his father had only seen in magazines. Meanwhile, Jack's health was slipping. His back hurt, his hands shook, and the garage didn't bring in what it used to. One winter, bills piled up, and Jack finally made the hardest call of his life. "Mike," he said softly over the phone, "I hate to ask, but I'm falling behind on the mortgage. Just a little help to get me through the winter." There was a long pause. Then Michael sighed. "Dad, look, I'll be honest. It's not smart for me to keep putting money into that old house. Actually," he hesitated, "if you signed it over to me, I could refinance, maybe even sell it. You'd have a better place to live, I promise." Jack, trusting as always, agreed. He signed the papers Michael mailed him, believing his boy was looking out for him. A month later, Jack got a notice in the mail. The house had been sold. His house. The home where he raised Michael. The garage he built with his own 2 hands. It was gone. Michael never called to explain. The last drive. Jack moved into a cramped apartment on the edge of town. The garage closed down. His health worsened. But even then, he kept telling anyone who'd listen, "My boy's a success. Made it in the big city. I couldn't be prouder." He never told a soul about the betrayal. Not one. One chilly autumn morning, Jack got into the only thing he had left, an old Ford sedan that barely ran. He drove slowly through town, past the diner, past the Little League field where he once cheered, past the old house now painted fresh by strangers. He parked on a hill just outside town, overlooking the place he'd spent his whole life. And there, sitting in the driver's seat, Jack Turner closed his eyes. When a neighbor found him hours later, Jack looked peaceful, like he was just napping. The keys were still in the ignition. On the passenger seat was a photograph. Michael at age 10, holding up a baseball glove, his father's arm wrapped proudly around his shoulders. The funeral. When word reached Michael in New York, he flew in first class, wearing a black Armani suit. He arrived at the small-town funeral surrounded by people who had loved his father, but the looks they gave him weren't admiration. They were cold, disappointed. The pastor spoke of Jack's sacrifices, his kindness, his loyalty as a father. Michael sat stiffly, guilt crawling up his spine. At the graveside, Michael stood alone. He placed a single white rose on the coffin and whispered, "I'm sorry, Dad. I thought I was doing the right thing." But no voice answered, only the sound of wind rustling through the trees.